Hey everybody, welcome to our tutorial on the Runtime Composer in CrazyTalk Animator 2. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how you can use the Runtime Composer to modify your characters so they can accommodate 3D motions, modify your simple like G1 and single angle characters. So let's get started with an actor here. I'm going to go to my actor tab and to my custom tab here and a character. I have this guy Monkey Boy here. Now it says he's a G2 actor on the top left of his icon there. But if we go in a little bit closer and we use the bracket key to rotate this character around, we can see that he actually only has a single angle. He's missing a bunch of body parts for the other angles there. So you can see we're just going to be using the 0 degree profile for this one. So basically like your typical G1 actor. So now what we want to do is we want to apply a 3D motion to this character. So I'm going to go to my animation tab in the motion 3D folder. I'm going to go to move, and then we'll go down here and we're going to add in this tired walk. And you can see right away we see some obvious issues with the character's layers and all that stuff, but it's a fairly decent monkey walk other than that. So let's go ahead and see what's happening here. What I want to do first is I want to go up to Edit, and I want to go to Affected by 3D Motion. You can also press Ctrl-Shift-O. Now this basically dictates how your 3D motion is affecting your G1 or single angle profile character. You can see that the sprite replacement is being affected, the layer order is being affected, as well as the perspective strength. So let's take a look at perspective strength first. If I bring the perspective strength down to 1 and press OK, let's go ahead and play back and see what happens there. You can see that our character is not really, there's no real depth to his movement, almost like he's walking in place. Let's go ahead and Control-Shift-I, or Control-Shift-O one more time there, and let's take off the, or let's bring the perspective strength all the way up to 5, and take a look at that. And now you can see right away that we have a big effect as far as depth is concerned. CrazyTalk Animator is automatically scaling those body parts to seem further away, creating a much better sense of depth. So let's go ahead and stop that. Again, Control-Shift-O. Let's bring the perspective strength back to about 3 right now. Let's take a look at what happens if I turn my layer order off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see that, wow, it looks like our layer orders have already been fixed. But if I play back, you can see that that's not really the case because this character is just walking with his hands behind his back. Not very many people walk like that. It's the original layer order for the character. So let's go ahead and turn that back on. Control-Shift-O again. Turn the layer order back on and press OK. So what we do need to do is we need to actually fix these layer issues. And to do that, we can either go into our character composer here and adjust the joint masks, or we can use our Runtime Composer as well. So Control-R is the Runtime Composer. I'm going to bring that up. And we're going to look at the character's joint masks first. So let's go ahead and go to the Joint Masks tab here. And you can see this character has some joint masks set up, but some of them seem to be a little bit off as far as the size is concerned. Now this image here is basically a good reference for the image or for the joint mask size. So take a look at this. Again, it really depends on your custom character and the custom motions you want to apply, as you'll see in just a moment. So let's go back to our monkey character here. With the monkey character, what I want to do is adjust these joint masks so that they actually cover the parts that we want them to cover. So let's take a look at the right arm here first. We'll select that joint mask, and you can see that if I move that around, it's masking out different parts of the forearm, but it's not big enough to cover the entire forearm. So what we need to do is expand that in size, and we really want to emphasize this monkey's chest, and so we'll just bring that up to about that size, kind of just covering most of his chest there. We can even rotate it a little bit like that, and then that should be good. If here's the advantage of the Runtime Composer. Basically, I can scrub through the timeline, and I can check how that's being affected. Let's turn off our bones right now, since we're looking at our joint masks. You can see that now we're pretty good as far as that part of the chest is concerned. When the right arm is in front, it's only kind of showing that part right there. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the left arm right here. Let's choose our left shoulder, increase the size of that joint mask, maybe just rotate it a little bit around so it's kind of conforming to where his chest is there, and maybe just stretch it out a little bit more. Something like that should be good. And let's take a look. We'll scrub through the timeline, and you can see that maybe we want to move it a bit over here so we got more of a curve. It's totally up to you, but basically that's kind of what we're looking to do here, and we're good to go. So this is the huge advantage with the Runtime Composer. In the traditional composer, you'd have to go back and forth into the character composer, into your stage mode, into your composer mode, and adjust things that way. So you can see if I go right now into my character composer, it'll bring up this monkey dude, in the character composer, but there's no timeline, so I can't really see how this motion is being affected. And he's in this kind of like little T-pose here. Let's go back to our stage mode here in the Runtime Composer. Select our character one more time, Control R, Runtime Composer, and let's take a look at the thigh joints here. We can just kind of mask those out. I'll make that a little bit larger. We can scale it that way as well. And for the other one, let's move a little bit further on in our timeline. Yeah, about there is we need to see, need to cover about that much area with our joint mask. So let's kind of bring that up a little bit. Stretch it out. You don't want to make it too large. And I'll go ahead and do the knee as well there. You can see the knees kind of stretching out, or the knees kind of popping out there on the side. Rotate that. And just scale it a little bit larger there. And let's take a look at our joint masks right now. So again, you can slowly scroll through. And there we go. I think we're good to go right there. So that's basically all of our joint masks taken care of. So that's how you can adjust your joint masks in real time when you're applying these larger 3D motions to your single profile characters, or characters that haven't been set up for those particular motions. So then we can have fun fooling around with the bones of this character as well. Let's go to the Bone tab here and zoom in on our character. Since he's a monkey, we can kind of make him have longer arms. We can select his upper arm. And of course, keep in mind these are permanent changes to your character. These are not keyframe changes, so anything you make, any changes you make here will be permanent. And you'll want to start from the root, so you want to start from the upper arm and move on down to the lower arm. I'm gonna scale that up, give him like some chimpanzee arms. And you can see now he has massive hands because those have been scaled twice. The parents have been scaled twice, the lower arm and the upper arm. We'll scale them back down to the normal size. We don't want to rotate. Scale it back down to the normal size there. And we're good to go. We can also maybe take his head and kind of move it down so he looks more monkey-like, and take his shoulders and kind of move those up. Something like that. There we go. That looks good. And then we can play back to see how that works out. Now you can see with his longer arms, it seems like his arms are swaying a little bit more there. And if we want to maybe even emphasize that further, we can go into our 2D motion key editor, or use the K hotkey, and we can kind of just maybe rotate those arms out so it makes him look more like the real king of the jungle, kind of give him that chimpanzee ape type look. And just move those forearms back in like that. And then we can go ahead and play that back, and there you can see the result right there. We get some sprite switching on the hands, some slight sprite switching. Let's press F3 and we'll loop that a couple times. Let's zoom out of our timeline and have our clip selected and go ahead and loop. And let's go ahead and play back and see the results of our final motion. So you can see we have the slow monkey walking through the jungle there. Now if I want to save this character with all of his changes, that's fairly easy to do. I can go to my Content Manager and the Custom tab right here. I can just select Add, and we can call this, Monkey Boy 2. And there we go. You can see in the thumbnail his arms are a little bit longer, his head's a little bit further down, so you can kind of see the icon indicates exactly which character you're using, even if they have similar names. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you another example now. I'm going to start a new project. We don't need to save that for now. I'm going to go and add in a G1 character from iClone, or from CrazyTalk 1. So let's go ahead and add in a G1 character, and we'll go ahead and add in Mr. Underwear Eddie here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a custom 3D motion to Eddie here. Now Eddie is of course a G1 character with a single 315 degree profile. So let's go ahead to my animation tab here in my custom folder. We'll go custom motion, and we have this boxing 2. So this dialog will come up when you apply the 3D motion to a G1 character. It'll notify you that there's a number of different ways to modify your character so that it can accommodate these multi-angle settings. One is the Runtime Composer, which we're using right now. You can also have full multi-angle setting characters, like pretty much like G2 characters who have full angle profiles. And the other way is to modify the motion with your 3D motion tools. So let's go ahead and press OK. You can click any of those for help for later on. And there you see our cool little boxing motion there. Now let's Control-Shift-O and go into the affected by 3D motion. In this case, you can see that sprite replacement and layer order are not selected. So let's see what happens if layer order is selected. We can select sprite replacement, even though there's not really any sprites being replaced in this motion. And we'll press OK. And you can see now that the hand goes in front of the face. The neck is kind of weird. We need a joint mask right there. Let's go ahead and play that back. And you can see we get a bunch of weird stuff happening right there. Let's go through that frame by frame and take a look at the actual punch. So I'm going to press F3, go into my timeline. In my 3D motion, let's zoom in a little bit on our timeline here. You can see where the punch is actually taking place is about frame 30, 31, 32, 33. So take a look at what's happening here. Basically, Eddie does not have any sprites for the bottom of his arms. So to explain this further, I'm going to bring in another character. This character is called 3D Reference Guy. He's our 3D Reference hero. So let's go ahead and bring him in right here. And you can see 3D Reference Guy. Currently, all zeros on his body, which means he's facing forward at a 0-degree profile. Let's go ahead and apply that same animation to 3D Reference Guy here. So you can see with 3D Reference Guy, let's take a look at those same frames. You can notice that the fist is at a B, which means for the bottom. And that the bottom basically means what the forearm and the arm would look like when you're looking at it from the bottom. So you can see that Eddie doesn't really have that profile. He doesn't have that angle profile for his arm, his left arm like that. So what we can do to fix that is we need to actually replace those sprites. Now, of course, you can do that in the Composer as well, but like most things, the Runtime Composer is a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and take a look at this character 3D Reference Guy first. We'll use the 2D Motion Key Editor here, and I want to take apart his arm. So let's, we don't need the timeline right now. We'll just take his, that's his fist right there. There's his forearm, and there's his upper arm. So you can see they all have B's on them, indicating it's the bottom sprite profile. Let's take a look at Eddie in the same frame, and you can see Eddie. If you go into the Runtime Composer, the sprite angle is shown as bottom. That's for his upper arm, his lower arm, and his hand. Whereas his chest is at 315 degrees. You can see the same in both characters. His head is at 0 degrees. Same for both characters as well. So that's how you can use this 3D Reference Guide to kind of give you an idea of which angles you're supposed to be using at which time. Let's go ahead and delete this guy right now. Let's close down the Runtime Composer first. We don't really need 3D Reference Guy anymore, so we'll go ahead and delete him, and we'll focus in on Eddie. So let's go about our sprite replacement. We'll select him first, and Control R will bring up our Runtime Composer. And what I need to do is go to that frame where his hands are at that angle. So we're going to frame again like 30, 32, doesn't really matter, 31, 32 is okay. And what I need to do is go to the Sprite tab now. And the sprite angle for the upper arm is currently at the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to replace that. And I want to replace it with something that looks more like an upper arm would look like from the bottom. So let's go and select this forearm sprite here. And you can see that basically that's what a forearm would look like if there was just a stub coming from the torso there. So let's place that into place. Now where you want to place this is very important. You actually want to make sure that you place the middle of your forearm on that root. You can see the root of the forearm, or the root of the upper arm rather, is that little blue dot. Let's zoom in a little bit closer so you can see those bones there. That's basically the root of the forearm, and that's where you want to center your sprite on. Let's do the same thing for the forearm. So let's select the forearm and replace that, and select the forearm. We can just scale it down to make it smaller. Now, the location for the bone joint of the forearm is right here with this blue little joint right here. So I need to move my sprite so it's basically centered on that joint right there. And if we select the hand, you can see the hand's basically where it's supposed to be. Now this kind of looks weird. So what we can do, let's first of all select the forearm sprite before we forget, and scale that down since it's supposed to be a little bit smaller than the upper arm. And there we go, we're good for that. Now to fix this, we need to go into our bone tab, and we need to adjust where the bones are supposed to be. So let's select our character's shoulder first, and let's kind of move his shoulder over to about maybe somewhere reasonable, like about there would be good. And let's select the forearm, and we'll move the forearm. And you can see the blue little dot there is moving according to where I transfer my body part to. And that looks about good right there. And the same thing for the hand. So let's move the hand about there. So that looks more like a punch would look from the front. So let's again go through the timeline here. And you can see now that when I move my character around like this, we're getting that punch. The left arm is a little bit off right there. You can see the sprite in this angle right here is a little bit off. So let's go ahead back into our this one right here, and let's select that upper arm, and let's move that back to about there, a more reasonable place, connected to his upper body, or maybe a little bit higher. Again, you want to kind of match it with where the character's body is. So let's maybe move it up this way here. There, that looks about good right there. And then we can see when we do our punch. There we go. We got a nice punch right there. Okay, so basically that's all been set up. So now from this point on, because I made those adjustments to that character, he actually has a bottom angle profile for his upper arm. So whenever any motion in the future requires him to have this bottom angle profile for his left arm, he will show those sprites, and the motion will look a lot better. Let's fix everything else really quickly in this motion, and then I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let's go ahead and we can take a look at the joint masks. You can see the neck is definitely an issue for this character's joint mask. We don't need the timeline right now, so the joint mask for the neck, you can see there's actually no joint mask. This is currently empty. So what I need to do is I need to select active, and then we get a joint mask right there. And let's make that a little bit larger. Bring that up to about there, and we should be good. And let's see if we have any other issues with the joint masks. First, let's actually go to our sprite editor over here. So I'm going to just make sure his hands are fists, because it's actually bothering me. He's kind of just fanning his hands in front of his face there. So if we go into the sprite editor, we select his hands like that. We can just maybe select a fist like this one right here. We can do the same thing. Make sure we're at frame 1 for the left hand as well. And bring his fist like that. There we go. Now he looks like he's really ready to fight there. And we can just go ahead and play that back. And you can see we got our punch right there. Let's go to where our punch is, and let's do a sprite switch, exactly where our punch is. So we're at frame. So we'll go to about frame 30, where we don't want to maintain this punch, the sprite right here where the punch is. So at this frame right here, what I want to do is just modify that, switch it up with this sprite right here, so it kind of looks like he's actually punching the screen. Maybe we can even put that a frame earlier right here. So bam, right there. And then about here, we want to maybe return that to the regular fist right here. And then we're good to go. So we have that punch right there. We can even further emphasize that. So at this point, if we wanted to do a body transform, we can go to our 2D motion key editor here, and body. Let's just add a keyframe in our left-hand transform track. Maybe at this one we want to make his fist a little bit larger like that. And then down here, we can maybe reset that and bring it back to the regular size. So now we have this, we can just use our arrow keys to kind of show the frame-by-frame effect of the punch right there, and bring it back like that. And also what we want to do here is we need to do a little bit of layer editing with the upper arm and the head and all that stuff. So you can see at this frame right here, we have his kind of arms kind of going through his head right there. So I'm going to go ahead and select the layer editor right here. And with the layer editor, I want to select this forearm. And I just want to put that, make sure I put that in front of the head. And you can see that that arm pops in front of the head there. And let's see if we maybe, yeah, we're good to go. Most of the frames are okay. And maybe right about here, where he's punching, you can see right here, we have his, maybe we just want to move his arm down a little bit because it looks like his forearm's coming through his head again right there. So what I want to do here to fix this one is at this point here, I can just go into my 2D motion layer editor right here. And you can see this is where the keyframes have been added. And I want to add a body transform keyframe right here. So I just double click in that track right there. And then at this frame, I want to kind of bring that down a little bit like that, just so it's doesn't look like it's going through his mouth. And then at this point here, we can kind of just, bring that back to whenever we want. And there you go. So we have our full punch right there. So let's go frame by frame through that punch one more time. Punch right there. And we're good to go. Alright, so that's our characters all fixed up with the 3D motion. You can see maybe we have a little bit of a layer issue down here. Can easily fix that with the Runtime Composer. Let's close down the 2D motion key editor. We just have a little bit of a joint mask issue right here on the right ankle. We can just correct that. Let's do the same thing for the left ankle as well. Click active on both of those. Let's go ahead and do two things here. First thing I want to do is save my character. So let's go ahead and save Eddie as a custom Eddie here in the Content Manager. We'll go to Actor, Custom Actors, and make sure Eddie is selected here. We can just make sure that we close down our Runtime Composer first of all. And there we go. And have Eddie selected. And in the Content Manager, I want to add Eddie. So we'll go Add right here. And we'll just call this guy Custom Eddie. A very creative name. And so we have Eddie saved. And then what we want to do is save our motion as well. So I'm going to go into the timeline, press F3, and open up our Collect Clip track here. Then we can save this either as a 2D motion or a 3D motion. In this case, I'm just going to be applying it to this character, Eddie, again. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it as a 2D motion. So I can click and drag in my 2D motion Collect Clip track here, right click, and I can select Export, and then we can go ahead and export that. Let's just call it Super Punch, whatever you want to call it, and press Save. Save that to our custom motion folder there. And let's go ahead and close down the timeline here. And what I'm going to do is create a new project. We can leave all that behind. And let's drag in Custom Eddie. And let's see what happens with Custom Eddie. First of all, when I use the 3D motion editor, 3D motion key editor, to drag his left arm up. So, like I mentioned before, he now has a bottom profile for his left arm. So if I go into the 3D motion key editor here, and you can see I can go over here, we can select his left arm. So let's select his left arm right here, and E hotkey to rotate that. We can kind of move that up, 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 up like this, and maybe move it to the side. You can see that the result that that's having on my character's arm right there. Let's bring him into a 315 degree profile, and if we move that arm like that, there you can see that the forearm will pop up, or the upper arm will pop into position right there, and then we can grab that forearm. We can pop that into position where it's reaching the bottom profile right there. So there you go. So now whenever our character has a motion that requires him to pop into that position, that's what he will do. And we can create that punch one more time. So now he's kind of asking you for a handshake. So let's go ahead and bring this guy back into our default position right here. And let's go to our Content Manager, try and find our custom motion here in the Animation folder. Animation tab rather, we'll go to our, we need to refresh that. Let's go back into the motion folder there, and you can see now we have our Super Punch at the 315 degree profile. If we drag that into our Eddie right there, you can see it'll basically give you this little notification right here. And you can see when I apply that Super Punch right there, we have our motion all set up right there. So basically that's all there is to it. That's all there is to modifying your character with the Runtime Composer. So you can so it can be suitable for separate motions. It can accommodate different 3D motions and their angle requirements and all that stuff. And you can build your character step by step that way as well by adding different sprites for different angle profiles and all that fun stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, you can check out our forums or email me at developer@relusion.com. And thanks for watching.